your Turkey Day. I'm Jennifer Jones-Lee, KGO 810.
No, not really. We're at the International Auto Show, but I guess the studio moves with us. Anyway, joining us for the next half hour, U.S. Congressman John Garamendi. It's great to have you on.
Good to be with you. And at the auto show.
And at the auto show. They got some beautiful models.
You got a great studio, but this is really much more cool.
It's bigger.
Yes.
That's for one thing. Before I get into the serious stuff, I just got to ask you, and it is serious, I just don't, where did this Daesh come from? It's ISIS or ISIL, and all of a sudden everybody's saying Daesh.
Well, I think there's two things. First, that's what the Arabs call this organization. So that's the word that's used in that region. And then this really isn't a state. This isn't a nation. And so why are we giving it credit for being the ISIS?
Oh, because of the state aspect.
Yeah,
the
it's not
letter.
A state. They're Daesh.
And when did this start?
And by the way, apparently they don't like that word. ISIS.
That's even better.
They don't like the word, so we're more likely to use it.
All right, let's talk about what is going on right now. The president's policy in terms of dealing with what's going on, specifically in Syria.
Well, the policy is the right policy. You take a look at where we are and what's been the policy for the last 14 months, and it's what we need to do. We need to gather the regional countries. They need to put their boots on the ground. We need to provide intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and the air power that goes with it. But this can only be dealt with, in my view, by all of the surrounding countries understanding that Daesh, ISIS, is their threat. They need to be involved. They need to have their boots on the ground. We'll provide advisors, special forces, and the like. Bottom line of it is we have to have a new authorization to use force because we are at war in Syria, and the Afghanistan authorization to use force in 2001 is not applicable for what is currently going on. Congress needs to do its constitutional responsibility of declaring war.
Everybody says the other countries have to come up and contribute. Everybody says it. But what about like a Saudi Arabia where the Wahhabi thing even came from?
Well, Saudi Arabia is that is the monarchy there is at risk because they have for many, many years now, they've created this Wahhabism and pushed it throughout the entire, really around the world. And they're going to pay a heavy price. They need to have that toned down, but they need to also have their troops on the ground.
And
this is their war. They do in Yemen.
They had for a brief period, then they pulled them back.
That's correct.
And so, I mean, these are the nations, like you say, the ones that we really need to see working with us, and they're not. They got a lip service, eight planes or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, it cannot be an American war.
Yeah.
If it's an American war, it's going to get bad because now everyone in that area will have a common enemy, and that's the United States. That we do not want to have happen.
What about today? The president and Hollande of France had their meeting, and it was fairly obvious what they were doing. We were both trying to figure out how they can help each other. Hollande says we were the first, but still we need to have more in terms of the United States being able to let them know what's going on. The French, obviously, a little bit more aggressive given what happened in Paris.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Yes, they are aggressive, and now just to make things even more complex and perhaps better, perhaps worse,
the
Russia.
Plane. Yeah, the
Russian plane was shot down by Turkey. Does this mean that the alliance that never happened isn't ever going to happen?
Well, that's part of the confusion when it comes to the Middle East. I mean, like Russia and us, we have a common enemy when it comes to ISIL. And yet Russia is fighting to keep Assad in power, and we're fighting to topple him. How do you distinguish between the two?
Well, you better sit down in Vienna, as we are, and work this out. This civil war, as long as it's going on, becomes the fertile ground for ISIS, Daesh, and other folks that want to play a nasty game where it happens to be. So the civil war needs to be solved. How is that going to be done? How do you involve the various ethnic groups, tribes, religious groups in a country that has a multiplicity of them? How can you create a government? What is Assad's role in the future, or is he gone immediately? That has to be negotiated. If it is negotiated and the civil war can be put aside, stopped, then ISIS is isolated. Daesh is isolated, and then we can hopefully, together with the surrounding countries, Turkey, the Kurds are clearly into it.
Right.
Now, the Kurds are
the closest to us in terms of...
Well, they're the closest to us, and they also happen to have about a 40-year fight with Turkey.
Yeah.
And so just to make things really complex, But nonetheless, the Kurds are working with us. Iraq, will they ever get its army back together again? We hope so. We're certainly spending a lot of money to make it happen.
But even Iraq is a created state. You should have 3 different states, and the Sunni, a Shia, and Kurd, and you would have the three parts of Iraq.
One of my colleagues would consider that it was following World War I, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and Britain and France put together the Middle East that we know today. They drew the lines.
Exactly.
And one of my colleagues in Congress said, has it come to the point where the United States is the executor of the British Empire? Well, it seems as though that is correct. We're left holding this thing, trying to keep something together there.
John, where does Israel play into all of this? Because the perception is that the president is not pro-Israel, or is not as pro-Israel as he could be.
Given the recent election in Israel, there's probably nobody that could be sufficiently pro-Israel. Obviously, that election really soured the relationship.
Netanyahu spoke in front of Congress.
Well, that was part of it, and then the various statements that were made. Bottom line of it is that we, the United States, has to repair our relationships with Israel. The president and Netanyahu have to get along. They may not like each other, but wouldn't be the first 2 leaders that knew they had to work together, even though their personal relationship wasn't particularly good. That it's absolutely critical that we provide whatever Israel needs to defend itself, because they are in a very, very dangerous neighborhood.
They want $5 billion a year now. Is that okay?
Compared to the alternative?
Yeah.
If they don't get it, and if they're attacked and things go south, it'll be far more expensive.
As a congressman, do you have any kind of a feeling or a knowledge as to when we talk about all these Arab countries need to get together with us, we ought to be together? Are there ongoing talks? Are there any indications that that's really taking place, or is it just lip service?
There are talks. There's constant negotiations going on among these countries, but recognize that these countries don't necessarily get along with each other.
Right.
And so you're in a very politically unstable, and obviously militarily extremely unstable area, in which terrorism is the order of the day. Violence, terrorist activities of all kinds, horrific events, that is the order of the day in this area. And we are also at a period of time that's repeating from earlier history of a schism within Islam. The Shias and the Sunnis have for 1,000 years been fighting it out as to who is the true successor of Muhammad. That has erupted once again. It goes through these periods of quiescence, and then suddenly it erupts again. We are in that period of time right now, and that is a major factor in what's going on.
From the International Auto Show, we're talking live with Congressman John Garamendi. If you'd like to join us, 808-0810. If you've got a question for him or a comment, 808-0810. I'm Ronn Owens, KGO Radio Time, 1045. Now it's time.
KGO 810, News Talk and Traffic.
Mustang Sally.
Rather appropriate. We're at the International Auto Show. This is the Ronn Owens program with U.S. Congressman John Garamendi. He's here with me, and Charles in Oakland has a good question. Charles, good morning. Charles. All right, Charles in Oakland is not there. Then I'll ask his question. Go ahead, Charles. I'll ask his question. No, let me ask the question because it's a lousy connection anyway. I can hear that. He wants to know, why are we supporting Saudi Arabia, which is a very legitimate question.
They've got the oil.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's not right, but they've got the oil. They have the largest...
But oil is $40 a barrel, or going towards $40 a barrel.
Well, one of the things that's happened in the United States has become much more energy efficient.
Correct.
The Bakken crude oil, the fracking that's gone on. We have moved from a very serious importer to one where we're very, very close. Even though we continue to import oil, we're very close. And right now, the oil industry wants to export crude oil. And I'm going, what?
Yeah.
This is how you become energy efficient?
Yeah, exactly.
This is how you become sufficient? I don't think so. But anyway, they want to do it. And, I guess they're not making enough money yet, so they want to export our precious natural resources.
If we're getting to that point, though, where we're almost at an even scale or even exporting more than we have, how does that affect the average driver? Do you see prices go down?
Probably not.
Yeah.
If you're reducing the supply, normally that will increase the cost.
Correct.
Now, there's a long history here. When the Alaska North Slope opened up 60 years ago, Congress passed a law that the oil could not be exported. And then they passed another law that it could be exported, but it could only be exported if it was proved that it did not increase gasoline prices in the United States.
Right.
That law's still on the books. And it had to be exported on American ships with American sailors. And so I'm going, if we ever export, let's go back, make sure that there's no increase in cost to the United States consumer, make sure our refineries are not hurt by the export, and put it on American-built ships with American sailors.
Let's talk about another country that has oil, Iran, and Russia's relationship with Iran. Iran is the elephant in the room. Let's be realistic. The terrorism that's going on in the world, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, whichever. How do we deal with Iran? And is the president doing the right thing?
Well, we certainly did the right thing with the nuclear enterprise that Iran was trying to do. We successfully put in place a mechanism for Iran to not have a nuclear bomb for many, many years, if ever. And that was good, because the alternative was to bomb Iran, and that would be a very difficult situation.
But one of the things people get hung up on, and I do too, is if you have 24 days before it's really going to be inspected, you can pretty much hide anything, can't you?
No. No, you cannot, not in this case, because we know ahead of time what's going on. The inspectors are 24/7, 365, and we will know. Now, it's 24 days before you can get to that particular site, but we know ahead of time. And the signatures, the radioactive signatures, they're already there, and we can go back and check on it. So they're going to have a very, very difficult time not carrying out their end of the deal. If they do, then the sanctions are still in place.
And they will snap back.
They will snap back.
I can see the United States reacting that way, but all the other countries will continue. I mean, you got the G5+1, and every one of those is going to be as intense as they were before the agreement.
I believe they will.
Okay.
At the moment, you go, okay, then the alternative of not having this deal. What is the alternative of not having the deal? And you go, that's not a good alternative.
The other problem, though, is that this was an agreement made, and everybody said Iran's going to cheat. I mean, it's not even a question. It was just a given.
They're going to have a very difficult time cheating and not be known to cheat. Mm-hmm. And if they're known to cheat, then the sanctions are there. We still have our sanctions. The international sanctions would either be in place or would snap back. That depends upon when that cheating might occur, if it does at all. So, once again, if we didn't have the deal, Iran could have a nuclear weapon within a year or less.
Let's talk about global warming, because that is the issue in Congress. So many people are talking about it. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong?
Well, I can tell you what's being done wrong, and that is Congress, under the Republicans, both in the House and the Senate, deny that there is global warming and doing nothing about it.
Yeah, but it's not all Republicans there. I mean,
well, if there's a clear majority.
Yeah,
the Democrats are universal.
The non-science coalition.
In the House of Representatives, the Democrats are 100% in moving forward with policies to address the carbon situation. And we can do that in a variety of ways. Certainly California is a leader. Governor Brown, way out in front internationally on this. Good for him, good for California leading. Congress, in the grip of the Republicans, is 100% nothing happening.
I voted for Brown the second time, so I get the license to say this. All right, you talked about Jerry Brown in the forefront. What about Jerry Brown in the forefront when it comes to immigration? Basically telling people from Central and South America, come on in, come on in. We want you here in California. Doesn't really seem the way it should go.
Well, the immigration policies of this nation are basically not operating, not operative. Wherever they're coming from, our immigration system doesn't work well. Comprehensive immigration reform is absolutely essential, and all of those elements. Obviously, we need to protect our borders. That's fine, but we need to know who's here. So you got to come out of the shadows, get your papers. If you've done something illegal, then if you're a criminal, out you go. Other people pay a fine, get in line for your papers, and deal with this immigration issue up front. We do need agricultural workers. The high-tech community claims that they need workers. There's a process that's been in place for the last 50 years that I'm aware of where the Department of Labor does a labor study and said, yes, we do, or no, we don't need these workers. And then they go forward from there. But the system is broken today.
The system is broken. I mean, if you talk about people in the IT, just take a look at the H-1B visas. Apparently not all of them are even being used.
That's possible. And we also have a lot of unemployed engineers from the 2008 crash that are looking for jobs. But some people want to go out and bring immigrants in rather than people that are capable, that have been here some time.
I'll throw you a quick curve because you have less than a minute left. And you can't do it in a minute, but I'll give it a shot. Explain Ben Carson, would you?
Inexplicable.
Exactly. U.S. Congressman John Garamendi, thanks for coming to the Auto Show. You got a good day ahead of you.
I got a great day ahead of me, and I don't even have time to see all these fabulous autos. By the way, they were talking about that report skids and all of that.
Right.
I wonder if there's a car here that can avoid the skidding on the slippery pavement.
You'll find one.
I bet it's here.
Thanks.